Hi everybody, I'm Jackie Gladney, and today's video is about choosing a yoga teacher training. For those of you that don't know me, hi, it's nice to meet you. And I have over 10,000 hours of teaching and studying experience. I went through 5 different yoga teacher trainings and 5 fitness trainings before I ever began to lead trainings and create them myself. I used to own a studio, and now I'm focusing on leading retreats and trainings internationally, creating meditation programs, as well as doing what I can to share the knowledge that I have and to share my experience with people where it's easy to find. You know, it can be so hard to pick a program that's right for you. And I know what that's all about. You know, there are hundreds now of yoga schools out there in all different countries, all different price ranges. And it's really hard to know, you know, who do I go with? Who should I train with? And so this video today is my top 5 tips on picking the yoga teacher training that is right for you. And I've watched a lot of videos about people's advice, and the advice that I have to give is kind of completely different. And so hopefully this helps you in choosing the training that is right for you. First off, congratulations on wanting to become a yoga teacher. Going through training is such a transformative, powerful, enlightening experience, and I'm super happy for you and excited for you. Okay, so my top tip, I'm sharing this one first because if you don't watch the whole video, if there's anything you need to know, it's my top tip. My top tip on picking a yoga teacher training is, who is the teacher training lead? This is so important for you to have a positive experience. Who is the lead? You know, you want to look at, is it someone that you feel like you gel with if you haven't met them in person? Is this someone that you have a desire to learn from? And what is their experience? What schools did they train at for yoga? You know, if they only trained under one school and then now they're leading trainings, that's totally fine, but you're going to get kind of a limited scope or a limited view of all of the topics that we cover in yoga teacher training. So what schools did they go to? Who did they train with? What is their experience as far as how many classes have they taught? How many years have they been teaching? And how many teacher trainings have they completed? And I have a couple little notes here. Another one is you want to know what past participants are saying. You know, any teacher training school and any teacher training lead, if you ask them for it, should be able to give you references. People you can call, people you can email, past participants where you can ask, you know, real questions. I've never had, you know, I've never given a reference and had the person not want to talk to this potential new teacher. You know, because in yoga, we do a service, and I think as all teachers feel it's a service to share their experience with someone who's possibly wanting to go down the same road as them. So that's the top tip. Who is the teacher? What is their experience? Do you gel with them? What styles do they teach? Who have they trained under? And what are past participants of training saying about them? Number 2, my second biggest tip to look at is, this is when we really start to look at the actual program and what are the contact hours with the lead. You know, I've seen a lot of these teacher trainings out there that are being advertised with some super popular, famous, you know, yoga teacher as, you know, the lead trainer, and I've gotten feedback from people saying that person was only present, you know, a small amount of the time, and then they spent the rest of their time with the person's assistants or other teachers. When we look at the Yoga Alliance, I think you should, before you decide to sign up for a training, go onto the Yoga Alliance website and look at their standards for 200-hour teacher training programs. Now, the Yoga Alliance was created because the yoga community felt like we needed to have just some standards for schools, and not every school participates in being part of the alliance. And their standards are, in my opinion, kind of like they don't really expect much. So this is kind of the bare minimum, what they expect. And what they require is, out of a 200-hour teacher training program, you need to have 180 hours of contact hours. So that's hours where you're actually studying in person. And then 20 hours can be on your own, assignments, reading books, 180 contact hours. But they require that only 65 hours is with the lead trainer. Only 65 hours. So if you don't get an understanding of exactly how many hours you're going to be studying with your lead, you'll be learning from other people, their assistants. And some things that I've seen in the past is you're learning with someone who just went through yoga teacher training themselves. They, just went through it a couple of months ago, and they're guiding you through your training, and you don't get much time at all with that lead trainer. And that can still be a positive experience, but you're making this big investment. Sometimes upward of, I've seen trainings like $9,000, and you should know exactly what you're paying for. When I lead teacher trainings, I go way over 65 hours with my teacher trainers. It's probably at least 150, if not more, hours with me, and then you're getting my experience, my expertise, learning directly from me, and I make that known to you. So you want to know how many contact hours are with the lead, and if there are quite a few hours with their assistants, you're going to want to ask exactly who those assistants are, and then take tip number 1, research that person and find out if there's someone that you want to learn from. Okay, tip number 3. Looking at the program, and what does this program cover? What style of yoga is it? Is this a style of yoga that you're interested in? And if it is a style of yoga that you're interested in, do they give you an actual sequence? So these trainings are so short and you don't have too much time to learn. And so it's important, I've found, that you are given a skeleton or an actual yoga sequence to start with. Whether it's yoga or fitness, I've gone through 2 teacher trainings, I'm not gonna say if it was yoga or fitness, but where I wasn't given a sequence. I was given a bunch of different moves and told, you teach an hour class or a 45-minute class or whatever it was, but I wasn't given that structure. And I was already teaching at the time when I went through these trainings, so I was able to put a class together to teach, but there were a lot of people that graduated from that training that weren't successful because they didn't have that skeleton to start with, and then once you feel comfortable with the skeleton, to then build from. Once you are able to teach the skeleton for a while, then it's really easy to transition over and to change your sequence, add in other postures, change things here and there, but it's vital that you have the skeleton and the class layout from the get-go. So that's important to learn. Another thing is, for the Yoga Alliance standards, if you're going to a school that follows the standards, they only require that you learn Patanjali yoga for the philosophy section. And Patanjali yoga is a classical yogic text, but it's not the only one. So you're getting kind of a small view of yoga philosophy. Do you want to learn about Buddhist yoga? Do you want to learn about the Hatha Yoga Pradipika, which is probably more important for Western yogis to study than the Yoga Sutras of Patanjali? So find out what the history section and philosophy section actually covers. And this kind of, I'm going back to people I've trained with in the past, and this is like really doing your investigation of the person who is leading the training and what their knowledge is. Because if they haven't studied certain texts, they're not going to be able to teach them, obviously, and that sounds silly and stupid. But I have trained with people who didn't know what they were talking about. And I've trained with people who know what they're talking about. Big difference there. And it's just really important that you look at, okay, does this training cover all of the topics that I want to learn about. You know, there's trauma-sensitive yoga teacher training. There is prenatal yoga teacher training. There is, you know, more physical yoga teacher training. So it's just getting a good understanding of the syllabus and kind of what is included in this training that you're about to go through. Okay, let's go to number 4. And my 4th tip is to look at the training length and the location. So there are kind of 2 different ways to do your yoga teacher training. And one of those is a at-home training where you're still going about your regular life and you have some weekend intensives and you have, you know, maybe 2 or 3 evenings a week where you go in and you study for 3 or 4 hours. And these trainings can last anywhere from 8 to, you know, 15 weeks. And I've seen trainings even where you're just meeting shorter amounts of time that extend out to a year length. Now these trainings end up being a little bit cheaper and you don't have to take time off work, which, you know, when I first started, that's what I did. And it's really challenging to add in school, because this is school, on top of what you're already doing. But for some people, that's attractive and that's the right way to go. I recommend it for sure. It's right for some people. So you just want to make sure that you have the time to put into the training. You know, I didn't do my research the first time I went through a training. I had a great experience, but I just kind of dove in and I didn't really think about or learn what the requirements were going to be from me as far as how much reading and studying I'd have to do, how much time I was putting in, and then the daily practice, making it in every single day to take class, to get to my 200 hours by the end of the training. And then the second way to train is kind of distance learning training. So this is going away somewhere for a minimum of 2 weeks, maximum about 1 month for a 200-hour teacher training program. And you're staying there, you're living there, you're taking time out of your normal life to focus on training. And I've done it this way too. I've done it both ways. And the distance learning training is nice because you get to completely just be consumed by the process of teacher training. And everything else in your life gets to kind of just wait for you for when you get back. This immersion is a great way to do it. And you do have to take time off of work and off of life, but I think it's worth it in the long run. Okay, now number 5, my final tip. This is where we get into cost. You know, people will talk about cost first. Cost is way down on my list. How much does the training cost and what is included in that cost? You know, trainings run, I've seen trainings on Retreat Guru for like $1,200. I don't know how that's possible, but it is. You know, and when you're doing a distance, when you're going away and doing training that way, look at the cost and find out, you know, is my accommodation included? And what is the accommodation? You know, what is the place like that I'm going to be staying at? You know, you should be able to see pictures and read reviews, learn all about it, learn how many people are going to be in a room with you, learn, do you have your own bathroom, do you not have your own bathroom, and are your meals included? And if your meals are included, what kind of meals are included? You know, is it just bread twice a day with some fruit, or do you get 3 meals a day? Are meals not included at all? And really look at that price and decide if this is worth it to you or not. You know, I did a training that was a training where I went away for, and my room and board weren't included. So I had these long days, you know, like 12-hour days, and I had to rent a apartment there for the time I was there, and food wasn't included. And it was tough for me, you know, with these 12-hour days to then find grocery stores, make my own meals, package them, bring them with me. And you know, when I look at the cost, like I ended up spending minimum of an extra $3,000 for that training while I was there. So that's something to look at. And are your classes included? Because in a yoga teacher training, you do have to take asana, or actual classes, and sometimes those are included in the cost, sometimes they're not. Sometimes you have to pay additional money to be a member or buy drop-in classes wherever it is that you're training. So that's an added cost that can kind of get you. And is your manual included? Or do you have to buy it? You know, are your books included, or do you have to buy those? These are costs that are just going to add up. And so there's not a right or wrong way for a school to kind of package their training, but it's just important to know, you know, what are the additional costs going to be, and then to factor that into your decision. Something that I haven't spoken about yet, but that I'm just going to add a little note on here. You know, I think it's a whole other video to look at where you want to teach and getting a job there. But just one last tip here is to look at the ethics and morals of the school. You know, if you're going to an individual who has a school, you probably aren't going to have to really worry about it as much. But if you're kind of training at a corporation or a bigger company, you know, look at, do you think that they're being ethical about how often they're training and how many people they're training? And do you think that they're going to be able to provide all of those people all of the love and attention that they deserve while going through their teacher training? You know, if you're training alongside 1,000 people or even over 100 people, I would say you might want to think twice about that, because you're not going to get very much one-on-one attention. If you are training with a larger group, find out, you know, do you have a mentor that's assigned to you throughout the training, and do tip number 1 on them. Figure out, who is this person that you're going to be learning from, that you're going to be asking